What's up, John?
What's up, guys? No one knows how to talk about misery more than me.
Yeah, I mean, but you know what? If you look back at the season, they were 2-0. They've lost 10 of 12.
They got off to the quick start everybody wanted.
Yeah, but not really. Even those losses were red flags. We were
mean the
looking
wins?
at the wins. We were looking at them going, "Ooh, I don't know, man."
Yeah, but, wins are wins. And, especially when you look at them now, it's certainly better than some of these losses.
No doubt.
No, they peaked. They peaked at the moral victory. We had a moral victory Monday. They peaked at that Eagles game.
Yeah.
And then it just went off the rails after that.
Yeah, and, it's funny because, in that one, you wondered where the offense would go from there because they showed a lot. And it turns out that with that one, they know how to play the Eagles' defense. And that's what it was. It wasn't anything more than that. So I thought that was – after that game, I'm like, hey, you know what? They maybe could do not, go on this big tear, but that they –
It could be trouble for teams. For sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So let's get your take on the quarterback. I know you haven't watched the film yet of yesterday's game, but it's almost a full season. He had that 3-game stretch with 8 touchdowns and just 3 picks, but he's followed up in the last month with 2 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. His accuracy has gone way down. What have you seen watching the film? What are people saying about Sam Howell? What's gone wrong here the last month?
So, I mean, some of it's always a mixture of things, right? Because, sometimes there are going to be some protection issues. We've seen that. And sometimes it's going to be, I think you saw this with McLaurin when Jacoby Brissett came in. I think there would be a desire to maybe get the ball down the field a little bit more and trust them to win contested catches. And I think that's something that takes maybe a little bit of time getting used to, and not quite to the same level. But I remember when Kirk Cousins was here, the coaches would talk to him about throwing to Deshaun Jackson and how you just have to get it up to him, to trust him. If it's even, he's going to win, and just trust him. And it took Kirk a while to do that. And I almost wonder sometimes with Sam if there's not a little bit of that going on as well, that you have to learn to trust that. Just throw it up there, McLaurin will get it. I mean, he almost did the one time, right? So I think there's some of that. And then, there are sometimes the on, as everybody now, it's the off schedule plays. He's been doing really well. On schedule, it's been a little bit more of an issue. And sometimes that's you look at Brissett and just, again, it's not necessarily an apples-to-apples comparison because of situations, but Brissett did a really nice job coming in, just throwing on time. I also think it helps him that he's able to, he's 6'4". He's got better vision over the line. And I think that helps too. But, some of the time, I don't know if the timing's off, but it hasn't worked. And I think what it's done, the bigger point is that we went from a few weeks ago thinking, okay, well, whoever comes in, they'll likely build around Sam Howell, to whoever comes in is going to take a good hard look at this situation, as they should.
Yeah, I think it's impossible to ignore. They're going to want, everybody wants their own guy. That's going to be sort of their instinct if you don't have a star. So, I mean, it's going to be tough for Sam unless he can. Yeah.
No, I'm saying, but there are a lot of guys in that locker room who really like playing with him.
Yeah.
But
they liked Heineke too,
Well, they did, but there's the difference. The difference in it is that they see more talent in Howell.
Right.
And maybe he just has to mature a little bit more as a quarterback to get there. And I know, with McLaurin, I've talked to a couple times for some stories where it's getting used to just kind of getting in sync, getting to the next level with a guy where you can kind of look at a guy and know, and you're going to see the coverage the same way. Do you know what I mean? And so that leads to maybe more back shoulder throws. I've had people tell me they need to, he and McLaurin need to work a lot in the off season on things like that. Just to get that timing currency down. But I know they you brought the accuracy earlier, but that's one thing that guys do like about him is that they feel he is accurate. But there's some maturation that has to still take place with him as a NFL quarterback.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, that last interception he threw, and I'm a Howell supporter. I really like him. Was really maddening, and you could see it coming too. And even though I don't buy Ron's excuse that they benched him because they were pinning their ears back, that's kind of why they were in that position. Because one thing I have learned with Howell, if he has a tendency of anything, it's when they're down. He just kind of throws caution in the wind and just kind of really presses. And I think that interception was really maddening for me. But here's where I am overall, John. I don't see if you agree with me. I feel like kind of like a golfer that's just like playing poorly. And you know what? Sometimes you just got to put your clubs away. You just can't play for a week, I actually wish, and no one likes this. I think I'm the only person in the country that likes this. I actually wish Brissett would play this week. Give him a reset. Let him just see what Brissett does. And then, give him the last couple games, and see where he is. I think the whole season has kind of worn his ass out. And he's playing his worst football right here. I don't think that means that's who he is right now. I think it's the hardest job in the world, certainly the hardest job in sports. And I think he had a good stretch, and he's capable of really good play. And I think right now he's playing poorly, and he probably needs a break.
Well, yeah, and I wouldn't expect that to happen because they have committed to this part of the season to being about his development, right? And even if they're not going to be here to see it through, I think there's
sometimes you develop by watching.
Oh, you do, but I don't think that's going to happen. And I don't know, I think the other part of it too is getting worn down, but they're facing much better defenses.
100%.
And I think
no doubt.
Right, and so I think that's a big part of it as well. There is a tendency at times, like even on the throw, the play you mentioned, the interception, is a tendency to try and do too much. And sometimes it looks really good where you can make some of those types of plays, and it's the New England game. And, there have been other times, though, where it's like since that game that it's like, now they're definitely worked out at times. But that one was like you're just trying to do too much because you could have just dumped it to Antonio Gibson by the sideline, et cetera. But yeah, I don't know. One of the things that in getting to know Sam Howell is just I don't feel like that stuff gets to him the way it might to some other younger quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
And,
like Kirk. Kirk used to be down.
Like Kirk. Yeah. Oh, yeah, because Kirk would let one bad series lead to another when he was just getting started. And that was a big complaint from coaches, and we all saw it. And, with Howell, you do not get that same feeling. I think he has the right mindset for it. But there are definitely times where either he's passing something up, and I'm not sure why, or he's, forcing something like that, whatever. And again, it's not all on him because it's just not. And there were times in some of the games where it may be the protection. Sometimes it's the receiver's timing on the routes is bad. And so it's kind of a combination of things. But also I think it was a little bit, I don't know about eye-opening, but the way Brissett moved in the two drives, it's funny because we're in this spot last year, we're talking about, the way Carson Wentz moved against those two drives against San Francisco, but they were playing press in those situations. They weren't trying to give up, let him just kind of go down and score. He did a nice job. So, you see that and you wonder, okay, where's the timing and rhythm at for Howell? Where is it at overall? But there's so much in the growth part to his game that, I still think he benefits from playing, but I get what you're saying.
You also don't know, though, John, this is the $1 million question, a $1 billion question. You don't know if he's going to develop. Mac Jones had a good rookie season. Has he developed? He's gotten worse.
You're right.
You just never. You never know. We're gonna have the whole offseason to talk about quarterback and assess, and it's going to be dependent on the new GM and the new coach. And Sam might be part of a competition. He might be the starter. They might move on from him. We know what's happened. I want to ask you though. For the Howell backers, Howell backers, they like to point to the offensive line, that it's a weak offensive line. And nobody can disagree with that. I'm just curious because you watch it much more closely than me. Do they have any keepers on the offensive line? Like, how do you assess the 5 guys that start?
Yeah, I mean, I think, Sam Cosmi will be part of the future. The one I wouldn't know is like Ricky Stromberg, who we didn't really see this year because of injuries. Is he going to be part of a future here? Wiley, with the contract, probably is. Now, the one thing I don't know with him is if you go out and get some tackles, do you bump him to guard? So I think they certainly need a few parts, but I don't. The one thing I think that it's sometimes hard to fully grasp unless you're deep in it, I mean like you're coaching and all that, is the effect that the scheme or players, the scheme can have on the line too, and how you're getting rid of the ball. And I've talked to Logan Paulson about this on my podcast where Miami's line is not that great, but the scheme and what they do makes the line look better. And so that's also part of it. So they can go out and draft, and I would expect them to draft a lineman. I've had people here tell me, hey, if this group is back, they should take three, or we should take three of them, right? So I don't know if you're going to do all that, but I would bet that you're going to see probably three new guys on that line next year.
I hope so.
That would be the guys. And again, there are ways to help it. And the Miami thing is a real thing. I mean, Tua gets rid of the ball so fast, but they also have receivers who win super fast. And the way they threaten you with motion and formations and angles and stuff makes it better. And that's what, there are, if you're a veteran quarterback and you have some of that savviness that you can maybe help your line by how you read out a play. But that's kind of a next offseason or next later on discussion. But yes, I do think they'll probably have three new starters. That's because I would guess a new starter at center, left guard, and at least one of the tackles.
Yeah, it's just,
and that's not to say that it's all the tackle's fault, but I just think you're going to have a chance to draft possibly one, the best tackle in the draft.
John, I just want you to go on record because I heard you on your podcast this morning as I was driving in, because I don't think these guys have heard it necessarily. You still see a lot of bright spots in Howell. These guys in here, they're all willing to just move on. They've seen enough. I'd just like to get you voice your opinion.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of traits that he has that I like, and I think the work he puts in is really, really good, and you're going to start there. And I go back to Kirk, and that's what helped fuel his rise is just the work he put in, and I think it matters to him. So then I think you look at the accuracy and the toughness; that matters as well. I think the things that he's going to have to kind of improve upon is just eliminating the mistakes that's been huge, or the turnovers. You can't have this many. And then I think a few more being willing to get some more attempt more contested catches to guys like McLaurin. And maybe I think some of the progression could probably still speed up a little bit. He had a knack for holding the ball a lot in college, and we've seen that here. And, so I think that those are things I think you can still win with. And when I talk to people about him, I've had people kind of compare him to an Andy Dalton type, not in terms of style, but in terms of level of play. So it's a guy that you can win, you can certainly get to the playoffs with, and then whatever happens. I don't know that he's going to necessarily be the reason you do all that. I think he clearly would need more around him, whether from protection or skill, more a little bit more help at the receiver or tight end or whatever.
How do you think he'd do if he had Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, and Trent Williams?
Yeah, I think he'd do pretty well with Kyle Shanahan calling the plays.
He wouldn't do as well as Brock Purdy.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
People just want to lift up guys and say
Brock Purdy's great.
Yeah.
But anybody not named Trey Lance would probably be successful in that offense.
Yeah, right, and that's what I'm saying. So situations, but those are hard situations to land in because
give him Tyreek Hill.
Yeah. I mean, there's and that and so there's a lot of ways.
Give him C.D. Lamb and who's the other guy?
I certainly wouldn't automatically move off of him because he showed he had a really good 7-game stretch where he was, I think it was like 14-4, the touchdowns, interceptions. That's really good. So he's shown a lot, and the off-schedule plays are really good. I think it's just the on-schedule, it has to get better, and that's where, a new coach, I don't think you automatically just draft somebody because I don't know that, if you're drafting 4, is Jaden Daniels going to automatically be your guy? And I've talked to some people who say no, like they don't think they wouldn't do that.
But you might be able to trade up and have ammunition. Look, we're going to be able to talk about that all off season. Yeah. We only have a minute or two left, John, and just wanted to kind of look. It's obvious that Ron Rivera hasn't made a difference calling the defensive plays over Jack Del Rio, and it's probably impossible to have a definitive answer. But what happened to this defense this year? We thought it was going to be good.
I thought it would be much better. And anybody who thought it was going to be really bad is just they're
lying.
Yeah, exactly. Because they were bracing themselves for what usually happens here versus reality. So first of all, like the pressure, the front 4 was again individual, collectively not always what you need. The back has been the biggest disappointment to me. And a lot of that comes back to communication and just how many times teams will motion or play tempo against them because they know it's going to force them to communicate and they don't do it well. And even on that long touchdown yesterday, that was a big part. That, to me, has been a huge part. I think the lack of real impact from Emmanuel Forbes as a corner, that didn't help. But even without him, they were pretty good last year in that secondary. And I think they need to get a guy back there who is a strong communicator. That would help. And I think you're still going to need, another corner, at least one, right? So I think that to me was a big, big part of the downfall. But the line collectively before the trade was just, they'd have some big numbers at times, but it wasn't consistent. And I think that was also part of it. But I really look at that secondary because they give up a ton of big plays. A ton, and it's always a breakdown. It's usually a breakdown or a lack of communication as much as anything else.
Yeah. Appreciate the time as always and the insight, John. Good stuff. As John Keim covers the Commanders for ESPN.com. Yeah, he's dealt with a lot of misery. We have too. It's just stunning. Like if you think about it, EB, we started doing the weekend show in 1996. And it was kind of a downtime, but you'd figure just over time, eventually they'd get good. And it just hasn't happened.
The problem is, I think, you just keep switching these guys every year. It's hard. You got to develop somebody. Maybe Howell's not the guy you want to develop, but can we develop somebody?
You got to get the right coach. Got to get the right quarterback.
Got to get the right evaluator.
Yeah.